The truth about our wealth wasn't written in a bank ledger. It was etched in the scars on my mother's body. Every time my younger brother Namdi got violently sick, our business, Uzoma Holdings, thrived. When Namdi smiled, the money vanished. We didn't have a child, we had a living sacrifice. And tonight my father was forcing me to make his death permanent. I was 22, fresh out of university, and full of ambition to take my place in the sprawling, polished offices of the family empire. I wanted the wealth, the respect, the escape from the generational shame of poverty that had crippled my parents for decades. But the wealth was cold, sterile, and always temporary. It existed only on borrowed time. "He's sick again, Chidi," my mother, Mama Uzoma, whispered, her eyes swollen and red. Little Namdi, 6 years old, lay shivering on the bed, his small body gripped by a fever that threatened to tear him apart. A small trail of dark, sticky foam stained the corner of his mouth. I knelt by his side, brushing the damp hair from his forehead. He was a small, fragile boy, often prone to illness. Yet his sickness was inextricably linked to our sudden rise from destitution. 5 years ago, when Namdi was a baby, Papa Uzoma's import business was dead. We were starving. Then Namdi fell into his first severe seizure, a terrifying silent convulsion that lasted an hour. When it stopped, Papa got a phone call. The contract was signed. The money flooded in. This cycle was our grotesque, unwritten balance sheet. "We need to call the doctor, Mama," I insisted, pulling the sheets around the boy. Mama Uzoma shook her head, her hand trembling as she reached under Namdi's mattress. She pulled out a small black cloth parcel, knotted tight with twine that looked suspiciously like dried sinew. "The doctor cannot treat this illness, Chidi," she said, her voice dropping to a low, dreadful rasp. "This is Ogbanje sickness, it is the debt." I frowned, pushing away the old myths. "Mama, that's superstition. Namdi has seizures, he needs modern medicine." "It's not superstition when the spirit leaves and the money stays," she hissed, her eyes locking with mine, revealing years of hidden terror. She untied the parcel with frantic, shaking fingers. Inside, wrapped in layers of dry leaves, was a small, dark object. A stone impossibly smooth, carved with tiny, intricate, moving symbols. It felt cold to the touch, colder than any ice. This was the Iyi-uwa, the Ogbanje's binding stone which anchored his spirit to our family, forcing him to be reborn only to suffer and die, fueling our success. Suddenly, Papa Uzoma's shadow filled the doorway. He was a man remade by wealth, heavy gold chain, crisp white linen, but his eyes, once ambitious, were now perpetually haunted. "Put that away, woman," Papa Uzoma bellowed, his voice cracking with fear. "You are scaring the boy." He wasn't talking about Namdi. He was talking about me. Papa stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the Iyi-uwa. "The stone is a protection, Chidi, a family heirloom. But the sickness, it means the bond is weakening. You have ambition, my son. You want to save this family, yes? I will show you how to save the wealth permanently." He grabbed my arm, his grip hard and desperate. "We must visit the Dibia, Chidi, the old man who made the pact. He will teach you the final ritual, the ritual to stabilize the Ogbanje's payment." I looked from my terrifyingly sick brother to the cold carved stone in my mother's hand. I realized the secret wasn't the wealth, it was the choice. The choice between the soul of my younger brother and the prosperity of my entire family. The chilling truth about the Ogbanje is exposed. Hit the like button now to protect Namdi from the wicked power of the Iyi-uwa stone. The grip of Papa Uzoma's hand on my arm was a dead weight, cold and utterly unyielding. He didn't see Namdi's fevered, convulsing body. He saw the vanishing wealth, the shame of the poverty they had fought so hard to bury. "He's dying, Papa," I yelled, pulling away. "He needs the hospital. The hospital only sees the fever, Chidi." "They don't see the ledger," Papa Uzoma hissed, dragging me towards the front door. "We are 2 weeks from securing the eco-bridge contract, the one that secures our name forever. But the wealth is bleeding out with every gasp that boy takes. You want the life you went to school for? You will come with me to the Dibia." Mama Uzoma stood between us, her body shaking with silent grief. "Leave him, Papa, we have paid enough." "Let Namdi go, the spirit is ready to leave the circle." "Silence, woman," Papa Uzoma bellowed, his voice laced with years of suppressed terror and greed. "If Namdi leaves the circle, the wealth leaves with him. We become the beggars we once were. Your son, Chidi, will have nothing." He pulled me out into the humid midnight air. The stars above the sprawling city felt cold and judgmental. We drove in silence to the outskirts of Lagos, the neon city lights giving way to dark, muddy backstreets where the air hung thick with the smell of stagnant water and cooking oil. The Dibia's hut was made of corrugated metal and shadow, smelling strongly of charred herbs and dried blood. The ritualist himself, a man named Iyi-uwa, was ancient, his skin like oiled leather, his eyes cloudy and unsettlingly calm. He sat on a low stool arranging pieces of bone and cowrie shells on a faded mat. "The Uzoma debt is weakening," Iyi-uwa stated, his voice a dry rustle without looking up. "The boy's spirit is fighting the anchor. The payment is almost due." Papa Uzoma fell to his knees, clutching Iyi-uwa's robe. "The wealth, Dibia, stabilize the wealth. My son, Chidi, is here now. He has the ambition to complete the pact." Iyi-uwa finally lifted his head and fixed his cloudy eyes on me. I felt a chill that bypassed the Lagos heat. "You seek to inherit a cursed throne, boy. Your brother is an Ogbanje, a terrible sacred sacrifice. The Iyi-uwa stone anchors his spirit, ensuring his painful return to you, bringing wealth with his suffering. How do we stop him from getting sick?" I asked, my voice trembling. Iyi-uwa gave a thin, terrible smile. "You don't, you make his suffering permanent. You make the wealth eternal." He pulled out a small, smooth wooden box tied with black twine. "The Ogbanje is a cycle. To break the cycle and keep the fortune, you must perform the ritual of the final severance. You must take the Iyi-uwa stone from your mother. You must grind the stone into the boy's food, ensuring the spirit can never leave the rebirth cycle, but instead remains trapped within the vessel of your family's wealth." I recoiled in horror. "That would kill Namdi. It would secure your future," Papa Uzoma cried, tears of desperation streaming down his face. "It's a mercy, Chidi. We save thousands from poverty by sacrificing one. We save ourselves." I looked into my father's desperate, tormented eyes and saw not a loving parent but a man driven mad by the fear of failure. He was offering me a choice: fraternal betrayal or financial ruin. The Dibia's voice is a suffocating weight, demanding a wicked promise. I stormed out of the Dibia's hut, the sight of the old man's black shells and my father's desperate tears burning into my mind. I drove back to the city, the air outside smelling less of exhaust and more of old, heavy corruption. "I won't do it, Papa," I stated, my voice shaking with a cold fury I didn't know I possessed. "He is my brother, not collateral. We will return to poverty. We will beg on the streets if we have to. But I will not condemn a 6-year-old boy to an eternity of torment." Papa Uzoma didn't look at me. He looked at the reflection of the city lights shimmering on the dashboard, at the visible markers of the wealth he was about to lose. "You talk of poverty like it is a gentle sleep, Chidi. Poverty is a monster that eats dignity. It ate your mother's soul before the Dibia saved her. The pact was not for wealth, my son. It was for survival." We arrived back at the house. Namdi's seizure had stopped, but his body was unnaturally still. The fever had broken, and a terrible, chilling cold radiated from his small form. Mama Uzoma was kneeling beside him, weeping silently. She looked up at us, her eyes hollowed out by grief. "The Echo Bridge contract," she whispered, her voice barely a breath. "Your papa signed it. It came through while Namdi was seizing. The payment has been accepted." I looked at my father. He stood tall, bathed in the sickly gold glow of the expensive chandelier. The shame on his face was eclipsed by a profound relief. The wealth was back, stronger than before, bought with Namdi's agonizing surrender. The next morning, the family celebrated the contract's signing. Relatives came, dressed in rich aso-ebi, praising Papa Uzoma's miraculous business sense. The phone rang constantly with congratulations. The air was thick with the sickening perfume of success bought at a hidden price. But the price was visible on Namdi. He was awake now, silent, his small dark eyes fixed on me. He wasn't crying, but his gaze carried an ancient, profound sorrow that was terrifying to behold. He refused to eat, he refused to speak. 2 days later, the family gathered for a huge feast. Papa Uzoma grabbed my shoulder, his voice strained with forced cheer. "Go, Chidi, show your cousins your new car. We are blessed, we are free." I looked at Namdi, who was sitting alone in a corner, staring at the floor. I knelt beside him. "Namdi, what is it? Why won't you eat?" Namdi slowly lifted his hand and pointed to his small plastic bowl of rice. His finger traced a line to a tiny dark speck hidden beneath the grains, a speck that looked identical to the Iyi-uwa stone my mother kept hidden. He spoke, his voice barely a breath. "They want me to eat it, Chidi. They want me to eat the stone, so I can never leave." I snatched the bowl away, throwing it onto the plush carpet. The shock of his revelation was physical. The Ogbanje spirit was trying to force the final ritual through the meal, permanently binding itself to the boy's body. Papa Uzoma materialized immediately, his face a mask of cold fury. "What are you doing, Chidi? You disrespect the food?" He saw the rice scattered, and his eyes fell on the dark speck. His face went white with fear. He hadn't known the spirit was acting on its own. The Ogbanje was making its final demand. The Ogbanje is pushing its agenda, trying to trick Namdi. Hit the subscribe button now to shield the boy from the spirit's influence. The silence that fell over the house was broken only by the nervous laughter of the guests who had witnessed the outburst. Papa Uzoma dragged me into his private study, slamming the heavy wooden door behind us. "You have ruined everything," he roared, his desperation overcoming his false confidence. "The spirit is restless, it needs the stabilization. If that Iyi-uwa is not settled, it will take the wealth and take us with it." "It tried to make him eat the stone, Papa." "He's a child," I screamed back, the full sickening horror of the pact overwhelming me. "He is not a child, he is a contract." Papa Uzoma shouted, his eyes burning with frantic terror. He ran to his wall safe, spinning the dial with trembling fingers. He pulled out a worn leather-bound journal, the family's secret history. "Your grandfather made the pact, Chidi. After your mother lost her first 2 babies. They kept dying, coming back and dying again. The traditional Ogbanje cycle, but without the wealth. They were paying the suffering without receiving the reward. The Dibia told them to stabilize the spirit, to anchor it with the stone, and the suffering would be channeled into prosperity." He thrust the journal at me. The script was ancient, brittle, charting the rise of the business against the timing of Namdi's seizures. It was a ledger of pain for profit. "The final ritual is simple, Chidi. We must take the original Iyi-uwa stone, the one your mother hid, and take it to the spot where Namdi was born. We bury the stone there and perform the final chant. The stone will bind the spirit entirely to the house, ensuring the wealth remains forever. But Namdi's consciousness will be erased. He becomes only the anchor." I looked down at the journal. The entry next to Namdi's birth date was not a celebratory note. It was a drawing of a small stick figure with a huge gaping hole in its chest. I ran out of the study, driven by a terrible new realization. I needed to find Mama Uzoma. I found her in her bedroom, rocking slowly, holding the small black cloth parcel. "Mama, where did the other stone come from?" "The one in the rice?" I demanded. Her eyes were fixed on the ceiling. "The spirit is clever, Chidi. It made its own stone. It is paying its own debt. If you break the original stone, you only free the spirit. And it will follow you, Chidi, demanding the price of its eternal suffering from you, the ambitious one." The horror was complete. I couldn't free Namdi without cursing myself. I couldn't stabilize the wealth without destroying his mind. The only path left was to destroy the entire system. I have found the original Iyi-uwa. The spirit is watching me. Hit the like button now to distract the malevolent force so I can plan my next move. I held the original Iyi-uwa, the small carved stone, in my hand. It was unnaturally smooth and throbbed with a faint malevolent energy. If I smashed it, Namdi would be free. But the Ogbanje spirit would attach itself to my ambition, ensuring my own downfall, demanding the price of its eternal cycle from my soul. If I buried it, Namdi was gone forever, replaced by a shell. I went back to Namdi's room. He was sitting up, pale and weak, but his eyes were now clear and lucid. He was looking at me, not with the cold terror of the Ogbanje, but with the unmistakable love of a little brother. "Chidi," he whispered, his small hand reaching out. "They told me to eat the pretty rock, but I didn't. I want to play with the train set." In that moment, the choice was simple. My ambition, my degree, the family's standing, it was all worthless compared to the living, breathing soul of my brother. I wouldn't let him be an anchor. I turned and faced the silent, expensive room, feeling the eyes of the wealth upon me. I heard my father's frantic pleading. I knew the ruin that awaited us. I found Papa Uzoma in his study, frantically trying to contact the Dibia. "The money is fluctuating, Chidi, it's dissolving. The Ogbanje is leaving." "The Ogbanje is leaving because I am taking the anchor," I stated, my voice steady, cold, and final. I held up the stone. Papa Uzoma lunged at me, his eyes wide with a manic terror that shattered his facade of composure. "No, don't be a fool. You condemn us all, you condemn yourself." I dodged his frantic grab. "You condemned him, Papa. You condemned all of us with your fear. The pact ends now." I smashed the Iyi-uwa against the mahogany desk. The sound was not a crack, but a sharp, wet, agonizing scream that filled the room. The stone did not shatter. It dissolved into a puddle of dark, viscous liquid that smelled like stagnant water and ancient coins. The lights in the study immediately exploded, plunging the room into darkness. Simultaneously, the entire house was plunged into silence. The rhythmic hum of the air conditioner died. The buzzing of the security system went silent. The house became cold, empty, and terrifyingly still. I ran back to Namdi's room. He was sitting up, breathing normally, his eyes wide and clear. He was no longer seizing, he was free. But Mama Uzoma was screaming. She was staring at the wall, pointing a trembling finger at the calendar. The date had not changed. But the entire wall behind the calendar was covered in a sprawling, black fungal growth that hadn't been there moments before. The growth was feeding on the wood and spreading rapidly. The Ogbanje spirit is released, but its energy has transferred to the house itself. Comment now to protect the family from this new, silent horror. The house was not just silent, it was dead. The fungus spread with terrifying speed, consuming the walls and the costly furniture. It wasn't organic. It was the physical manifestation of the dissolved pact feeding on the wood and the guilt. Papa Uzoma stumbled out of the study, seeing the black pulsating rot. The man who had been defined by his wealth and ambition was suddenly a terrified, broken shell. He understood the final consequence. The poverty was back, but it was physical and consuming. I grabbed Namdi, wrapping him tightly in a blanket. "Mama, Papa, we have to leave. The house is collapsing." We rushed out into the street. The Uzoma compound, hours ago a shining beacon of success, was now rapidly turning into a black, decaying mausoleum. The neighbors rushed out, staring at the black fungus consuming the walls of the mansion. We stood on the street watching the walls bubble and warp. The smell was overpowering, the stench of rotting wealth and ancient spiritual debt. The next day, the news carried the story. The sudden, catastrophic failure of Uzoma Holdings due to unforeseen financial collapse and structural ruin. The Echo Bridge contract was void. The family was ruined, but Namdi was healthy. He laughed, he played, and he was filled with the pure, chaotic energy of a 6-year-old boy. The Ogbanje spirit was gone. I found my peace in poverty. I found a small job working with my hands and found a clean, small apartment for my mother, my father, and Namdi. The terror of the wealth was replaced by the simple, enduring stability of true family. But the inheritance was not finished. 6 months later, I walked into my small rented apartment after a long day of work. Namdi was sitting on the floor playing with his toy trains. He looked up at me and gave a huge, gap-toothed smile. "Look, Chidi," he said, holding up a small, perfectly smooth, dark stone he had found in the backyard. It was carved with tiny, intricate, moving symbols. It was cold to the touch. It was the Iyi-uwa. I felt the blood drain from my face. The Ogbanje was free, but the cycle was not broken. It had been anchored to the house, but now that the house was gone, it had anchored itself to the one thing that remained: my love for Namdi. The wealth was gone, but the curse remained. And the next cycle of suffering, financed by the slow, painful collapse of my own life, was about to begin. I knew then that the Ogbanje was not the child. The Ogbanje was the inheritance of the family's ambition, and it would claim its payment generation after generation. The cycle has renewed and the cursed stone has reappeared. Hit the share button now to give Chidi the strength to fight the Ogbanje in this terrifying new cycle. And the question remains heavy and absolute, hanging over Chidi's new life. When a generational pact is made for survival at the cost of the soul, does breaking the pact make you a hero, or does it simply designate you as the next sacrifice?